Welcome to Let's Talk Adoption. I'm Heather, and today Kim and I are going to talk to anyone who finds themselves really in a place they never expected to be. Not because you made a wrong choice, not because you waited too long, not not really for any reason, but simply because life maybe took a turn you didn't plan on or you didn't see coming.
And we've had conversations with people in so many different situations. Women who've experienced pregnancy loss, couples who've tried for years and are simply exhausted, and single women who assumed marriage and motherhood would look different over the course of their
Mhm.
life in these last 5 to 10 years, and divorced individuals who are starting over, widows who never imagined walking this road alone. And yet the common thread is the same question: what now?
Right. And sometimes, you know, grief isn't about a baby, it's about the life you pictured that is probably a little different than the one you're living. Maybe it's the timeline, maybe it's the structure, maybe it's the sense of certainty you thought would be there by now. You thought life would look different, life would look like you planned, life would look like you imagined it. Especially for us women, you imagined it as a little girl.
Hmm.
And when that picture doesn't match your reality, it really can leave you feeling, lost, unsure what to do when, you know, the life you have doesn't look like the one you pictured.
Hmm. Especially when it comes to something that seems so simple. You
Right,
grow up, you meet someone, you fall in love, and you get married, and you have all the children you feel called to have, whether that's
right,
1, 3, or 10. And you just
right.
have them and you just live your life. But one of the hardest parts about this kind of grief is that people usually don't verbalize this. It doesn't get recognized that we can be grieving the loss of an expectation and the loss of a dream, even though it's not something tangible or not a person. People understand grief after death. They
Mhm.
understand that when you lose a loved one, you have love that feels like it has nowhere to go, and that's grief. And it is much the same with struggling to become parents. When you feel so called and that's been your dream, maybe your whole life, or maybe a new dream that you never thought you would feel. You have all this love to pour into someone, a child, and the child isn't there in your arms, isn't there in the room for you to pour into. And that grief often goes unnamed, unrecognized. So that's why we want to, talk about that today and recognize that um, an unnamed grief has a way of settling into the body. And I think that's why it's so important to have ways that you can get it out through listening to a conversation like this, and perhaps even having a conversation where you get to say out loud what you're grieving and the disappointment.
Mhm. Mhm. And I like how you said that, Kim, because there's so many paths to this place we're talking about. This place of, pausing, or maybe you didn't have to pause. Maybe this is something you're living with day after day. This frustration and feeling of this isn't where I thought I would be. This isn't the life I had in mind. This isn't the life I chose. And, people can get to this place because of loss, because, you know, maybe they feel like they waited too long. Maybe it's a change, or any type of uncertainty. No matter what brought you to this place, those feelings, that grief, that, maybe you just have this ache in your heart, that's all valid. You know, sometimes sometimes we hear people say, well, but that's not the same type of grief. Or, yeah, but that's, just because it didn't work out for you, that's not real. It is real. There's no hierarchy of pain. And really it's it's so personal. There's no need to compare my pain to your pain, my loss to your loss. No need to compare stories. No need to earn the right to feel any certain way. The
Hmm.
loss of expectation is a very valid type of grief, and sometimes can be hard to see your way out of it.
Hmm. And especially tough is if you're someone that has never really had a big disappointment like this.
Right.
Things generally have gone the way you had hoped that they would go, and generally you follow all the best advice and you make good choices, and maybe you have a great family support, and then the next chapter of your life should be clicking into place. And maybe this is the first time you've experienced a moment when it's beyond your control and nothing you do is changing it. And sometimes when I talk with adoptive parents, I feel this feeling of they're afraid to hope.
Hmm.
I don't even know if I want to keep hoping anymore. And it can be one spouse more than the other. It kind of how they're wired in general, you know. They don't
Hmm.
want to keep breaking their own heart by hoping for something that's not happening. But that's okay to recognize that hope doesn't have to be forced.
Right. And I think this is where we really want to offer something important. And that is it's okay if you decide that parenthood isn't the path you want to pursue. Sometimes people get to this point and they see the options that are in front of them and think, yeah, I just I don't know that that's where I want to go. And sometimes we feel like we should or have to because not only have we held that expectation for ourselves, but maybe our family members, our moms, our dads held that expectation for us. And it's okay to decide for yourself, this isn't happening easy. I'm as far pursuing it as I want to. That choice doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you broken. It's not an alternative choice. It's okay to choose, okay, this isn't happening. This isn't the direction that I'm going to go.
And I think it's healthy, whether or not that aligns with you, to recognize that as an option,
Hmm.
that you have choices. You are empowered. This is not all being decided for you.
Hmm.
And if it felt like, no, 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 when Heather said that, just know that this conversation is for people who may discover parenthood might not be the path for me. And that's okay. And they need to hear that too.
Hmm.
And I think it's good to sit with that for a second and really allow God to work and help you discern where He's leading. It's okay also to say, I'm not sure yet. Maybe God hasn't provided you that clarity yet. Or I want this, but I'm scared. And to that, I will say, do not let the fear stop you. That fear is temporary.
Hmm.
You need to fight through it like you're going through the forest with a machete, bushwhacking your way through it. That's how we get through the fear. Because as I always say, the fear is not from God. Okay?
Hmm.
And the fear is absolutely temporary. So push through the fear. And if you're feeling called, do the things anyway, like Joyce Meyer says.
Hmm.
Do it afraid, right?
Hmm.
We're big Joyce Meyer fans here. um, So yeah, you might still feel a pull toward parenthood, and you just don't know how this is going to work. How is this going to get resolved? How are we going to get across the finish line?
Hmm. And I think it's good to know that uncertainty, it it doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you don't have the answers. It means you need to research, talk to people, learn more. You know, it doesn't mean that you're frozen. It means you need to, okay, figure out the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Get curious. And maybe that first step in curiosity is simply learning more. And it's so good to know and understand that learning more doesn't require commitment.
I love that. I love that because I think people think if I start researching adoption, that means it's the direction we're taking.
Hmm.
But give yourself permission to learn. You can learn about adoption or any other path to parenthood.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean you're signing up for it. That's just not true. That's a myth.
Right.
So be open to learning about the options. And as we say to women who are maybe considering placing a child with
Hmm.
another family, learning about it is powerful because that's information you're always going to have, whether it's for you or for someone else.
Hmm. You know, Kim, Marty Caldwell, the original Let's Talk Adoption founder and host when she started this podcast before they were even called podcasts.
Mhm.
Um, Her path to adoption kind of followed that as well. She had a number of pregnancy losses. She went to a kind of an adoption informational meeting for parents in her area. And, you know, it was more through the estate agency. And she was told that based on their age and a few other factors, their best hope was to adopt an older child. But her heart was for a baby. And she didn't let that fear or really that answer stop her. She got more curious, went and learned more. And this was in the 80s. This was at the cusp of open adoption, really starting to be a thing. And as she learned more, it opened up doors for her. And I think that's just a good reminder that exploring adoption doesn't mean that the first answers you get are the ones you go with, especially if they don't align with where you feel your hope and your heart is. Exploring adoption, like we say, it isn't a commitment. It's not a declaration of this is what we're doing. It's not anything more than learning. And I'm going to be the first one to say most people, whether they are birth parents or adoptive parents, their first coming into adoption has to do with learning because it's something that we don't know. Or, you know, there's very little adoption education that we get along the way. Most of what we know about adoption before we come and learn is through people we know, or more often, things we've seen on TV or in movies. And learning the real um, information about adoption starts to be empowering. It starts to give you options,
Mhm.
even if you ultimately decide it's not the right path for you. But learning about it, honestly, it's going to help you regardless of the path you choose from here.
I want to speak for a moment about our sponsor, the Lifetime Adoption Foundation. It's a nonprofit that exists to give back to the people most deeply impacted by adoption. For birth parents, the foundation offers educational scholarships, a way to invest in their future after placing a child for adoption. For those considering adoption, there are free resources and support tools to help them explore their options with clarity and care. And for children who may be more difficult to match with adoptive families, like older kids, siblings, or those with special medical needs, the foundation provides grant funding to help make those adoptions possible. You can truly make a difference. Learn more or donate at lifetimeadoptionfoundation.org. And I think even if your heart is totally open to adoption, you need to know what you're saying yes to.
Definitely.
And if you feel right now you're unsure or you don't think it could be, but you're just here kind of begrudgingly listening to a call about adoption, a podcast about adoption, it's okay because you need to know what you're saying no to as well.
Hmm.
And it might
Hmm.
surprise you and how much that information can bring clarity and peace. And I think the best way is listening to calls like this, in-depth conversations, long form, and also having one-on-one conversations with people who actually work in adoption, in the type of adoption you'd be seeking, such as perhaps if you're adopting a baby or
Hmm.
internationally an older child. Make sure that that the context matches up with what you're seeking.
Hmm. Definitely. So, you know, maybe taking a minute to talk about something that's hopeful, but also something that's true. And that is that parenthood is more possible than people realize. I know, I understand if you've been going through pregnancy loss or maybe, fertility treatments that aren't even resulting in pregnancy. It can feel like parenthood is impossible. But it is actually more possible than many people realize. It is not just for couples who are on kind of the standard timeline. Um, it doesn't happen for only people without loss, without heartbreak. In fact, most people who come to adoption come to it after experiencing probably a lot of the same types of losses that you've experienced. I mean, I could tell stories all day on people who I've helped adopt. Some of them have been widows who lost their husband during the adoption wait, even. Um, Adoption is not just for wealthy families, it's for any families. And so, I think it's good to, if you're hearing this thinking, yeah, I think it's out of reach for me. It's not. It's not. Parenthood can happen for anyone who wants to be a parent.
Right. We've had families that successfully adopt in their 30s and 40s. And if they're over 30, they tend to think they're too old, that their season has passed. Or if
Right.
they're 42, they think that they're too old, or they think there
Hmm.
aren't any newborns to adopt, and that's the most challenging adoption. And actually, not being open to newborn is the most challenging adoption to try to pursue. And while there's no easy path, there are paths. And that's why it's good to talk with someone to really try to figure out what your next step will be and in what direction.
Right. And if you are in a place, if you're listening today thinking, okay, maybe I'm open to that, maybe just a little, maybe I'll learn. You may even feel like, yeah, I don't think that's right for me, but I'll take a step and learn. You know, I think we want to also give you some actionable, easy steps to consider, not as pressure, not at all as pressure, just as possibilities, because whatever path you do choose, and choosing no path is choosing a path also. But, we want to be sure you have kind of the tools so that you're making an active decision now, not waiting until 10, 15, 20 years down the line and made no decision and now are living with the results and maybe a good dose of regret. It's better to learn and understand now and take those steps, learn the things you need to learn so that you can decide before you get to the point where, it may truly be too late.
Right, like Marty says, she sat on a park bench watching her daughter play, and a lady sat next to her and they struck up a conversation, and the woman was elderly and
Hmm.
had said, "We were never able to have children, and we never really did anything, and we ended up childless." And to that moment of being an elderly widowed lady, she was still childless and had never pursued adoption. Granted, in her day there wasn't the internet, there wasn't what we're
Hmm.
giving you today. You are living in a time where you truly have options because you have
Right.
all the information at your fingertips, and not deciding anything is deciding something.
Hmm.
Are you going to
Mm-hmm.
be that woman on the park bench, or are you going to give it your all? Do everything, and even if you are the woman on that park
Mm-hmm.
bench that ends up never having children, at least you know you did your best,
Mm-hmm.
right? You walked through every door that the Lord opened in front of you. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're using this time now wisely, and maybe looking at like, okay, a year from now, where do I want to be? 2 years
Mm-hmm.
from now, where do I want to be? And we can talk about goal setting and the next steps and everything, but right now in this moment, we just want to be comforting to you. And
Mm-hmm.
we want to validate what you're feeling in this season when there is so much beauty and joy, and the world is aglow with celebrating the holidays right now. But maybe inside you're grieving, and it's important to give a name to that, and give a name to what you've lost. And that can be, I lost the dream of what my life was going to be like, and now God is rewriting that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I lost the dream of experiencing a pregnancy through to birth, or I haven't even been able to conceive and no one can tell me why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have answers. Not only can I not, but I don't even know why. It might be the dream that you thought you were going to find a husband and you haven't yet. It's just simply grieving, hey, the life I'm living right now isn't the life that I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Naming it matters, and I want to say, allowing God to rewrite that and allowing God to redeem everything that you think right now is lost.
Mm-hmm. I think a good next step is really taking the time to decide what you want. You, not
Mm,
what others expect of you, not what your mother expects of you, your family, your siblings, not not even, pressure to keep up with others. Decide what you want. That might mean choosing not to pursue parenthood. It might mean choosing to explore it in a year or two. Or it might mean choosing to learn quietly without telling anyone yet. All of those are very valid.
mm. And if you feel drawn toward parenthood, allow yourself to learn. Read, listen, ask questions.
Mhm.
Learning does not obligate you to act.
Right, definitely. And, finally, remember that hope doesn't require certainty. You don't have to have the answers. Sometimes hope is just the willingness to explore and to believe that your story, it still has room for something meaningful, even if you can't see it yet.
And if you're carrying grief today, we hope that this episode feels like a place where you didn't have to explain yourself, and where you finally, for at least one moment, you don't have to rush toward answers.
hmm And if you're carrying even a small spark of hope, we want you to know you're not alone. It's not too late. And if you want to be a parent, there are many paths. And maybe you haven't even considered what those are. Maybe you don't even know them yet. There are many paths to be a parent, to be a mother, to be a father.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we just appreciate you being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe at letstalkadoption.com or wherever you receive your podcasts. And if this resonated with you, or if you have a topic, a suggestion, or someone you'd like us to interview, be sure to go to letstalkadoption.com and share your thoughts, feelings, feedback, and suggestions with us. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.